Morning, beloved.
Good morning. Good morning.
Or, yes, good morning. The pilgrimage to this day really began in 1959. In that year, I was a student at Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, the only man of color on that campus. There were those who wanted to be sure that I did not feel lonely or alone. One of them was Charles Worthy. One of the other men is Bill Lacey, who sits over here. These men became my friends. Those were the years when race relations were not good. But they were my friends. And we bonded together on that seminary campus. When we graduated, we went our separate ways. In 1968, I came at the request of the Home Mission Board, Southern Baptist Convention, to serve on their staff. Charles Worthy was over at the Rock Baptist Church in Rex. We reconnected. There was a desire on Charles' part that that church would relate to its community, and so I was invited to assist them in that particular ministry. We were also blessed with the lay leadership of Harmon Bourne. Harmon, I don't know whether you're in here today. He's been a close friend of this First Baptist Church and ours. I worked with them in their ministry, and then we got separated again. Charles went to the mission field serving in Israel, he and Carolyn. Later, I went to College Park from the Home Mission Board, and J.W. has hinted at that. Let me tell you the story. The church that I was in had a separation, as Baptists do. The group was separated, asked me to lead them. We needed a place to worship. We were worshiping in the theater at Benjamin Mays High School, but that wasn't a church. The first man that made a profession of faith in our congregation, 57 years old, was excited about his faith. He knew that this church needed a place to worship, so he went around to every community or church where he thought there was a vacancy or the possibility of buying that facility. He had asked the question, are you for sale? Are you for sale? Or are you for sale? He came to Second Baptist College Park. And Second Baptist was in process of moving towards McDonald. He got J.W. and I together, and there began the beginning of a meaningful friendship and relationship. J.W. and I talked about the possibilities, and a couple of months later, Christian Fellowship Baptist Church moved into Second Baptist College Park. And we carry on the two church traditions, although working together. What we worked out was that Second Baptist did Sunday school at 8:30, worshiped at 10. Christian Fellowship came in at 10:30, had Bible study, worshiped at 11:30. In the evenings, Second Baptist had the youth programs, evening worship. Christian Fellowship had a deacons ministry that met all over, according to zip codes. There were times when we worshiped together, the two churches. We set aside every fifth Sunday as our worship time. We did that. But all during our relationship, there would be members from Christian Fellowship that would go to Second Baptist come to Christian Fellowship. We always baptized together. We did vacation Bible school, community outreach. Everything else you can think of, that's what we did together. J.W. and I had our own pastors' conferences. We didn't meet weekly, we met daily. In the same building, there were many times when we needed to consult with each other, and we did, and out of that was what bonded the friendship between us. On the Sunday when Second Baptist moved to McDonald Road, It was painful for Christian fellowship. Our members got there way ahead of time so that we could be there to say farewell to those that we had come to love, to deeply appreciate. There were some members from Second Baptist that remained with Christian Fellowship. And some of Christian Fellowship members lived in the McDonough Road area, and they transferred there. That's how strong our bonds were. And even after that separation, we continued doing things as long as JW was at McDonough. We continued a quarterly meeting of the two churches. We just could not pull the separation cord from us. In 2001, Charles Worthy retired from the church in D.C. that he was pastoring. And although he and Carolyn were members of First Baptist Morrow, we had two services, and so they would be in one of our services every Sunday. Very dedicated members. In 2004, I retired from that church. Unfortunately, Baptists did what Baptists do. Another year later, there was a separation, except in two directions. But when I retired, Joel Harrison from our association asked me if I would be a volunteer staff person, and I said volunteer. I was to go to the various communities where churches were in transition and help them. And I received a call from Betty Hall and Cooper Shawlees to come by First Baptist, and I did. There began a continued relationship with us. I helped them to get one of those church separations into this facility. Unfortunately, that didn't last because that church collapsed a little bit later. I will never forget the December 18th date, 2005. Cooper called and asked me if I would meet him and Charles Lewis. Charles is one of the members of the church that was here at Piccadilly. And at Piccadilly, Cooper was telling us of the break of the previous congregation and what should First Baptist do next. And I was quick to say, well, there was another group that separated, and they need a place to worship, and I think there's a better chance that they'll pull it off. Cooper's a little bit shy, but then he said, okay, let's try it. First of the year, Charles came here. Charles Worthy came to First Baptist as the new pastor, and he had been a part of all the going-ons of Christian Fellowship, and he was eager to say, let's get the new group into this facility. And so for about 4 weeks, 5 weeks, we had meetings at Charles' home. The purpose was to discuss how the new group, the fellowship group, could make use of this facility and be in partnership with First Baptist. We had one problem, and our problem was getting the man who was leading that group to understand that First Baptist wanted a Baptist church on this place. There was an understanding that on this corner, 2813 East Point Street, there should always be a Baptist church. This young man wasn't quite sure what he wanted to be or what he wanted to do. The fellowship group made that decision for him in March, and he went elsewhere. The night of that meeting, there were 3 members from the fellowship group who called and said, would you come out of retirement and help us to get organized? That was followed by Charles Worthy, who called and said, Mac, you better. The next morning, Cooper Shawlees was on the phone and said, I'm counting on you. If you let me down, I'll not let you forget it. I contacted the chair of that group, Larry Youngener, who was sitting back here. Larry took the matter to the group, and they asked me to come. And it was my joy to serve them for 4 years, in the understanding that I would be an interim pastor. But what needed to happen immediately was that fellowship group needed to be constituted because it had not been. And so I led them through the processes for church constitution, and we were constituted in the chapel. I'm not sure of the exact date in June 2006, but in June 2006, Fellowship Group Baptist Church was constituted in the chapel. Charles Worthy and I had a lot of ideas, things we were going to do together, very much like what had happened with J.W. But that was not to be, because there was already at work in his body the germs and disease that would take him. In December of that year, 2006, J.W. was asked to serve as interim, and we were back together again, two old soldiers. Well, I started to say something else. I should emphasize the fact that this is one of my closest friends. Someone wiser than I has said the average one of us has only about 5 real friends. By real, they mean folks who love you, whether you're up or down, who will be your friend in your best or your worst, whose companionship you can enjoy. J.W. is one of my 4. I have 4, not 5. J.W. is one of my 4. He and Lorraine and Maria and I get together quite often because of the friendship and the love that we have for each other. I'm sure that will continue until the last breath leaves us. I will never forget also the night in the library room when the joint committee was meeting and Cooper leaned over the table, looked me stern in the eye and said, "Preacher, you got $1 on you?" Or he liked to play jokes, and I thought he was up to a joke. So I pulled out my $1 and he said, "Okay, now you got your church." That was his way of announcing to me and to the group from fellowship that on the previous Wednesday, the church had taken an action indicating that they wanted us to remain in this facility and would do all they could to make it possible. He did give me my $1 back, by the way. Through the years, I've come to love the people of First Baptist. And as I look into this room, I see so many people that I've hugged and kissed and shaken hands, and we've wept together, we've rejoiced together. I thank God for the pilgrimage. I regret that I will not be able to stay after this service to deepen those relationships, renew them. On the books of friendship was a wedding at 2 o'clock, and I'm going to make somebody mad if I'm not there. So to those of you of First Baptist, thank you. And even if I don't get to shake your hand again, we quite often run into each other at S&W or Piccadilly's or Red Lobster or on the streets. We'll keep on being what we've always been. We've always hugged and shook hands and greeted each other. We'll keep on doing that. And until we meet on the other side, we will be friends. Amen.